we're going to talk about this word called capacity today. And before we do that, we have to uncover and unpack this word called boundaries, because a lot of us, we grew up without any boundaries, and once we get this realization of what boundaries are and how they work, it's this big, huge revelation. And my big revelation came about 10 years ago when I realized, when I was in a career that I had enjoyed, and I was starting to not enjoy it because technology was making it too easy for people to infringe into my household, and I was losing peace. And I read this book called Boundaries, and it blew me away. And I got every book I could on boundaries. I was watching the YouTubes on boundaries. And I became, a boundary expert. I understood boundaries at a whole nother level. If you grow up in a house without boundaries, you all of a sudden you get this, breath of fresh air of boundaries, it can really be life-changing. And I got really good at understanding what boundaries were. I'm not going to say it was like overnight I became great at setting them, but I became very good at understanding them, letting people know how important they are. But this last year, it got different. I realized that some of these boundaries that I was setting were hurting me more than helping me. And I don't know if you've ever been to that point where you're like, okay, are these boundaries even good? Are they helping me? Are they hurting me? Are they protecting me? And at what point do we go from, boundaries, and what's the next level? Well, the next level I've learned this year is called capacity. It's a word. It sounds just like it is. To be capable. To be able to be capable, more capable. And in this, be capacity in our lives, whether that be having more capacity to be out in nature, have capacity to love yourself, have capacity to have relationships, better relationships with your family, your kids, your spouse, your coworkers, your friends. Are you have capacity to be able to hold sometimes people's pains when they can't hold their own pain, or the capacity to hold your own pain without letting it flush out on everybody else. So before we go too much farther, make sure you subscribe to this, you share this, you tell people about it. I'm no guru, I'm no genius at this. I'm a year into my sobriety, but for the last 15, 20 years, I've been really involved in leadership development. And I've really come to understand a lot of how people tick. But this last year, most of the stuff that I learned about leadership development, I'm not saying it was wrong, but it became really ignited this year when I started to understand how our soul works with our spirit and our ego and our pride and our shame. And so I want to help people understand how this all kind of works together. And this year I started feeling different with the boundaries, because boundaries had always, for the last 10 years, really helped me. They helped me establish a great family, a new home. They helped me establish sobriety, and just a lot of things. But when you get to the point where you start feeling like, man, there's got to be more than just boundaries, and is it hurting me or is it helping me? And what capacity is that? I used to be a builder, so I kind of understand this. There's actually in psychology this concept called load-bearing trauma, and what that is how well a trauma response is, and how well are we able to, carry trauma and carry trauma responses. And in building, I would say boundaries are like this. When you're going to do a new construction house, and I've built one before. I don't really like building that much, but I understand the process. Boundaries are basically your property. It's your outline. It's your gates. It's your doors. It's your locks. You don't want to have a brand new house and have no locks. You don't want to have a brand new house, if you live out in property and have no signs up and saying, hey, this is my property, this is mine. The problem is with boundaries is when we set up the entire house to be foolproof so nobody can actually come in, because we set the whole thing up with boundaries. And maybe we needed to do that in our past with some people that were just constantly, stepping all over us and walking all over us. And maybe we were a part of, family dynamics that created us to be hypervigilant and need a lot of these different boundaries. And there's probably a time in your life that they served you really, really well, but there comes a point where they actually can be hurting you. Because can you imagine if, you build a house and you, first off, let's just say you don't have any boundaries. Could you imagine if you just, build a new house and you just never have any doors on it, you never lock anything, you just let anyone come in and out anytime they want. You let people come in and out, have your food, you let people come in and out, use your electricity, let people come in and out, you put a sign up, hey, everyone free to come and go as they wish. And that's kind of what it's like to not have boundaries. It's kind of what it's like when people grow up in a home where, they weren't taught boundaries, or they weren't given the tools to need them. And so, what capacity does is capacity is the actual house itself. And I like to look at it like if you understand what load bearing is, load bearing walls are the walls that you put the trusses on, the roofs on. And if you put lumber on a wall that's not load bearing, the whole house can just fall over. So you have to, when you're designing a house, you have to strategize through the whole house before you actually build it. What walls are going to be load bearing to be able to hold the capacity to be able to put more onto it so you can have more inside of it. Do you see the difference? The whole idea of capacity is to be able to contain more. Key point. Containment. Contain more. Not contain what you already have. Not to learn how to squeeze it and hold it and protect it and make sure that it never goes away. That's what boundaries can do after a while. It just squeezes what you have. And again, boundaries are very important because you want to know where your property line is. You want to know where your doors are. You want to have windows in the house. You want to have structure. Maybe you have an alarm system. We have, 3 crazy dogs that let us know there's our boundaries. Don't come in our house. But then, how much can the house actually handle? Because what if we built our house and we put all our trusses and we put all our lumber? What if we put it on a house where we never put it on the load-bearing walls? And what if the capacity of our house, just the way we built it, can only hold 2 or 3 people? Anything beyond that, it's gonna collapse. And this was a big, huge revelation for me the last few weeks. It's just to understand, no, my job isn't to only have boundaries. Yes, I need some boundaries in life. I need to know where my perimeters are. But the goal in this spiritual walk is to grow in capacity, to grow in love, to grow in emotions, to grow and understand our limitations, to understand, this life is never going to be perfect. We're going to be dealing with imperfect people because you're not a perfect person yourself. And how well are we able to contain that and grow and help people in that instead of constantly changing people or not allowing them to get around us? Now, again, there is times where you're going to have to put that boundary. There's people that have come in your house. They've wrecked your house. You know their patterns. You know you need to have that boundary perfect. Have the gate up there. Have the lock there. It's for the people you know where they need to be. But that's not for everyone. And the problem is if we set up our whole life according to boundaries, not only are we keeping the bad guys out, we're also keeping the good guys out too. And we want the good people in our life. Those good people are going to make mistakes. They're not going to be perfect. They have trauma themselves. They have addictions themselves. They have hurts themselves. They're going to, for the rest of their life, these people, even good people, are going to do bad things for the rest of their life because they're humans. We live here and we have limitations. We have emotions, and none of us are perfect. But are they overall good? And if there's somebody in your life that's overall good and you know that they love you and they know that they care for you, then what we want to do is not constantly have boundaries for those people. We want to learn to grow in capacity so when they're hurting, we can help them. That doesn't mean that we hold everybody's emotions and we try to fix people, but even the Bible says that love holds each other's burdens. We're called to hold each other's burdens. And a lot of times we don't even know how to hold our own burdens, so we don't even go there. So there's a process behind this guide. I'm not saying go out there and hold everyone's burdens and go out, but we should be growing to have capacity for more. If you had kids, you want to grow in love, you want to grow in emotions, you want to grow in you want to grow in parenting skills, you want to grow with their personalities, you want to grow with their attachment styles, you want to be able to grow and be able to be more of a parent than your parent was for you, and to teach them to be a better parent than even you were. That's capacity. So over the next few weeks, that's what we're going to be talking about, capacity. So, stay with me. It's not all about, just learning how to protect yourself. There was a time in our life where you needed that. But man, for the leaders out there, for the people that want to go to the next level and you're feeling it, 2026 here, it's already here in my opinion, according to the 1313 moon cycles. And this is the time where, there's a split happening. And there's going to be a lot of people who don't want to listen to capacity. They want to fight it. And if you can hear me out there, man, join me on this journey of growing in our capacity. I'm gonna be talking a lot about it. Start using the word more, start thinking about it more, and whatever you do, no matter what, eat fruits.